You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And today we're doing a movie review for The Flash.
The Flash,
The
baby!
highly anticipated The Flash movie. And this is actually
Fastest man
interesting
alive.
because me and Nathan did not get the opportunity to see this together. And we haven't really talked about what we really think of this movie.
Yeah,
So that's really interesting.
at all.
We
So
don't really know
we're
anything.
coming in here
We've talked
just
just
about
a
to
touch,
drop some bombs.
but not a lot. I saw the movie twice to get more perspective. First time for enjoyment, second time for more of a criticism aspect. And we're gonna go into this movie. We're gonna break it down for you guys and review it and what we really think about this movie. So so just as an initial reaction to this movie, I will say as a Flash fan, I have a little bit of bias there because the Flash is my favorite superhero character.
Yeah.
But then again, I also have some other stuff to say as well. But initial reactions right off the bat, I don't think it is as good as the hype says it is. Personally,
Really?
I don't.
No, well, Michael, personally, I feel lied to because I didn't see the hype. Everything I had seen going into this movie was it's bad, it's too cheesy, CGI sucks, it's a bad movie. Like I didn't hear one good review about it.
Really?
So I,
I
feel
heard
lied
several
to
good
because
reviews.
I actually really enjoyed it.
You did really enjoy
did.
it?
I did.
Okay. Wow.
Actually.
Okay. This is interesting because I think, it's weird because as a Flash fan, I think we're going to be on opposites.
I was
perspectives.
really negative going in. I'm like, all right, it's gonna suck. It's just another Warner Brothers flop, which eventually it will be because of everything. But I actually liked it. I feel lied to.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. That's how I
Okay.
feel.
Well, I feel like, I saw a lot of good stuff. I saw some people say it's not as good, but I say a lot of people like they loved it, think it's really amazing, thought it's a really good movie and things like that. And I agree. It's for DCEU, it's definitely one of the better ones. It's not one of the lower
And that's
ones.
not like too terribly hard.
No, it's not hard.
I mean, I think like Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, maybe like the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman, Zack Snyder's,
Right.
Justice League,
up there. But
Man
it's
of
not
Steel.
hard to get up there. But they did that in that sense. But just initial reactions, I was a little bit more disappointed than I would have liked to have been.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I wanted it to be in a lot of ways. But then there was a lot of things I did like as well.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So we're going to start with our characters. And then after the characters, we're going to break down and go into our cameo characters and appearances that we'll talk about. And then we'll go into our pros and cons. And then we'll rate it out of 10 for the end. So starting off with the characters, we got to talk about, of course, Barry Allen, the Flash.
Barry Allen.
Played by Ezra Miller. And real quick, I just have to highlight Ezra Miller's performance was amazing.
It was
I can't even
absolutely
deny.
phenomenal.
It's one of the best acting performances I've seen in a superhero movie. Really, really incredible.
It's really good.
It was great.
I mean, just a portrayal of two completely different characters.
And you felt that. They were completely different characters.
And they were both hilarious, in their own ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I thought Miller really, really, really killed
They did
it.
do
and
a
I
great
was
job.
I was surprised personally.
I was too.
I was really surprised.
I'm not a huge fan of Ezra Miller, and I'm not a huge fan of how Ezra Miller portrays Barry Allen in a lot of ways, but they're a great actor.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny that. So I've got to appreciate that aspect in a lot of ways.
Shout out Ezra Miller.
Shout out there. So Barry Allen, let's talk about Barry. All right, so this character, it's my favorite character in all of, everything.
Yeah.
Barry Allen is my favorite superhero of the Flash. He is the Flash to me, Barry Allen.
Yeah.
But the only thing is yes, Ezra Miller gave a great to the character and did a great job. Every time I was watching it, I still didn't see him Ezra Miller as Barry Allen.
Yeah.
That was hindering me a lot in the movie. I saw Barry Allen in the way they were trying to portray it, but I kept thinking Barry's acting more like Wally West, or he's acting more like Tim Drake's Robin, more so than being the actual Barry Allen I know and love.
Well, to be honest, I don't think that this movie really took Barry's character in a place we hadn't seen before. Like previously in the DCEU, they had already established him as this goofball, kind of, which I know is not necessarily who he is in the comics, but I didn't feel like it was anything drastic from what's already been shown of him previously.
Right, and it's the same thing as as you said, the same thing as the DCEU was having, but to me, like you said, it's not Barry Allen. This isn't how Barry Allen is. Yes, he can be goofy and funny and kind of comedic at times, but he's down to the ground. He is a serious character.
Yeah,
and we saw a lot of that, and some of my favorite scenes in this movie was when Barry decided to pick up and be serious.
Yeah.
I think of the scene with his mom towards the end. That's one of my favorite scenes of the movie. It was incredible. But some of the other scenes that we got in his just comedic, goofy nature, him being very antisocial and stuff like that, is just not the Barry Allen that I like and know. Yes, he is antisocial, but not in that much of a way that they portrayed here.
It's definitely a different take, but honestly, I don't think that it hurts at least the character or the box office numbers.
Yeah.
I think if they took the more serious and grounded approach, I don't think it would go over as well, especially with like all the controversy. I think a lot of people want to forget if they choose to go see this movie. So I do think the comedy works in that aspect.
Yes, I see what you're saying, but still, that was a lot hindering me with Barry's character the way he was. But no offense to Ezra, because Ezra killed it with the part, but with the Barry Allen, the way Barry was written, I didn't appreciate it as much. But other than that, but Barry was also, I mean, he was an MVP in this movie. Barry 1, I'm talking about. He was incredible. I mean, you know, his suit was awesome. His use of speed was really cool. The way that they showed that was really awesome, and I enjoyed those things. But other than that, like, it was hindering me there with the actor and the whole thing with that. Next up, we got about to talk about Barry number 2. Hilarious.
Goat, yeah.
He was so funny.
He was funny.
I was laughing all the time when he was on screen. My brother loved him. Like, his laugh was my favorite part. I can't even do it. Yeah, it was hilarious.
It was really funny.
It was so funny, and it wasn't even like cheesy funny almost. It was like really funny.
He was just like a goofball.
He was.
I have a couple of buddies who act like that, and that was just what I was thinking of.
And I liked him better in this movie than I thought I would. I thought going in I wouldn't like his character as Barry number 2. But I liked him. I ended up liking him a lot better. I loved his Batman suit. I thought that was really funny. The whole audience was laughing. It was hilarious. I thought that was so funny.
Dumb, but so cool.
It does. I agree. That's exactly
it was really weird. I really appreciated seeing both of them. It felt like a delve into a character study.
You did.
I mean, how many years do you have like separating the two? Like maybe like 4.
I think it's like 10.
10 years?
I think
so you have like 10 years. You have a more mature Barry, right? But he's still struggling with his mom's death, right? And he's still not mature enough to not go back and change it. And then you have 10 years ago Barry, who obviously before he's got his powers would obviously not choose that. So just seeing the interactions, and the older Barry is counseling your younger Barry while he's still dealing with his own demons and his own maturity, I thought was really cool.
I agree. That's one aspect of the movie I really loved, and the way that they did that was really incredible. And the character development of Barry number 2 and Barry was really great. And I think they did that well. However, I don't like the way they did Dark Flash with him. And spoiler alert, obviously. I mean, there's spoilers all throughout this podcast, but I don't like the way they made him Dark Flash in the way that they did. I knew he would be since the very beginning of the movie. I knew that. But the way that it was executed, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
I can totally agree with you on that point.
I thought him just coming in and being like, I'm you or whatever. I thought that was kind of stupid to me.
I know.
I mean, Dark Flash is really cool in the comics, and then they do him really well in the CW show. But in this sense, they didn't, I don't think, do him as good. Yeah, they didn't give him justice.
They didn't give enough time to shine.
Right.
Really.
And I don't think it was realistic that Barry number 2 would jump in the way and die for Barry 1, because if he's going to be the Dark Flash, he's still jumping the way. I mean, that just kind of contradicts the whole point of what that was. I mean, it just branches off huge timelines or whatever, and that part was just confusing, and it was just kind of unnecessary, and it could have been explained better. I think it would have been cooler if Dark Flash was maybe not Barry number 2 or Barry number 1, but they made him like a different version, or like kind of a Savitar kind of scenario from the Flash or something like that, or even just a different character entirely. Like, just make him like he was in the CW. Just the Dark Flash is somebody who's trying to stop the timeline from being messed up. Yeah. That would have been, I think, better to me. What do you think?
Honestly, I think we should save it for a little later in the podcast.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
But no, I see what you're saying, and I do have points I want to talk about too. There.
All right, so next up we got Batman, played by Michael Keaton, for the characters, and man, he was great. We can't deny it. He was fantastic in this movie.
Man, he looked his whole like hermit stage, the old drunken stage. We've seen it plenty of times before. Hero gets depressed, they gotta go into this. Barry brings him out, but man, Michael Keaton just freaking killed it.
He did kill it.
I wasn't expecting his performance to be that great, but dude stole like every single scene he was in.
He did a great job.
He moved so well for an older Batman. Suit looked great. I was thoroughly impressed.
He killed it. And when I was watching him, I was thinking, this is Batman. Like, he's doing a really good job as Batman. Like, that's how Batman should be. And as an older Batman at that, I think it was cool. I still think it would have been kind of cool if they would have made him like Thomas Wayne and done that kind of storyline. Yeah. But I still appreciate the multiverse and how them having him. He was the Batman of the 1989 and so forth. But he did a really good job in this movie. I appreciated seeing him in every movement he was in.
He killed it.
He was really, really great in this role. Next up, we got to talk about another one that surprisingly I didn't think going into this movie I would like this character, but coming out I really actually did.
Yeah.
And that means Supergirl.
Dude, she was awesome.
I liked her.
Listen, man, you know, like I feel like a lot of times when they throw in these female characters, sometimes I don't know, due to whatever, they'll try to force an agenda or force you to like this character just because they're different.
Right.
Which this movie did not do that at all. Like they thoroughly fleshed out her character. They made you love her, man. Like I loved her portrayal.
I
really.
completely agree. Sasha Calle did an incredible job. I would have liked the blonde hair just because of comic accuracy, but other than that, it was really great. I love the storyline between her and Zod. I love the storyline of her. You know, she was Kara Zor-El. She was sent to protect her cousin Clark, or Kal-El, but that didn't turn to pain. In this universe,
he got
Kal-El
that baby.
died. But I really think that they did a really good job with this. You know, they showed that scene in Russia, and that scene in Russia was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I don't know if you agree. I loved that part of the movie. I think that was really awesome. And it reminded me a lot of the Flashpoint movie, the anime movie where they go after Superman in that one. But I really liked her a lot more than I thought I would in this movie. So I think she was definitely an A+ for me.
She killed it, and also, I would have really loved to see her in more projects.
I think I would too.
She was both like terrifying at the same time, but like slowly opened up her heart, like, to the people.
Like, give her the blonde hair and perfect.
See, I don't think you gotta go with blonde hair. Hair color, I think, doesn't really matter when it comes to stuff like this.
Supergirl's just iconic for
blonde hair, but they be changing like people's whole genders.
That's
and
true.
Stuff, you know,
That's true.
I mean, if she fits, she fits.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got General Zod to talk about, and for me, I didn't really care for him in this movie, to be honest.
Listen, I love Michael Shannon, and he's an amazing actor, and I really love what he did in Man of Steel. He was, in my opinion, a standout. But I don't think he was written as well as a character in this movie. I think it was just kind of a duplication of what we've already seen, but to a lesser extent. And I know that he kind of harked on that. He's like, it doesn't feel as real as the first time. They could have done a lot more with this character. I feel like they could have made him a lot more of a threat.
Yeah.
But it's not to his fault.
He was very threatening to the sense that, I mean, you know, the people, they lost. You know, they lost the whole thing.
Yeah, he was kind of duking
because Superman wasn't there. But at the same time, like, the trailers presented like he'd be in the movie more, but he was really barely in the movie. Like all he was is like, just in that one fight, we're going to destroy, and then Supergirl fights him, and that was pretty much it.
I know.
And I would have liked to see the
Flashes fight him.
I think that would have been cool. I mean, the Flashes stood no chance, but it would have been cool to see them try, or at least distract. Well, we get a little bit of a distraction with the Flash, where Flash 2, Barry 2 was doing the tornado, but still did not really care for him as much in this movie either. All right, next up, we got to talk about another character I think was awesome in this movie, and Ben Affleck was correct in saying this was the best time he's ever played Batman.
Oh my goodness,
because Batman, dude. Ben Affleck was incredible.
Dude, he was
in
so
the first
cool.
15 minutes he was in it.
That was also my favorite part of the movie. I was freaking out. To be honest, it was probably my favorite Ben Affleck Batman suit.
Ooh, yeah.
I loved like the dark blue and the gray. I thought it was cool.
Metal and
I thought he nailed the character
for sure.
And the action scene was just perfect.
So cool, man. It was so good.
I wish we would see more. It makes me, Ben Affleck might be my favorite Batman, and they're just like further solidified it. Like I want to see a whole movie like that.
Yeah,
dude.
it'd be sick.
He was cool.
And even when he was Bruce Wayne in the car,
Bruce was great.
He was great, man.
In that older, and he was like more mature and wiser now.
Like Barry's like, we don't do this. I mean, tragedy makes us who we are. And I was like, yes,
I know, because his parents died.
Yes, man.
Dude. I was like, oh,
it was so good. I completely agree. He was definitely another highlight. He
killed
of this movie.
It, which is so weird that like some of the best parts about the movie like were the two separate Batman characters, even though it was about two Flashes.
Right.
Like we said earlier, like you know, in the news, it's like given the Batman movie, I don't know, but
it'd be pretty cool.
Cut out the cheesy stuff.
Yep. Batman, he did a really good job. All right, next up, we got to talk about Iris West, who was not in this movie a whole lot. I mean, all she was is kind of the reporter. I mean, they ended up kind of getting together in the end, but she wasn't in this movie a whole lot.
I didn't enjoy her role, to be honest.
Yeah.
It just felt weird. It felt like she was just there for the sake of being there.
Because she's Iris West.
You could really have just cut out a lot of it.
You could have.
But to be honest, I didn't think the actress did a great job. I wasn't too compelled by the performance, and I thought it was just kind of
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I think.
I mean, she didn't really add anything to the plot except for her being, you know, Barry's famous love interest from the comics. That's all she was. For this movie, and I mean, they didn't really flesh her out that much either. She was just kind of there, like you said, to be there. So you know, not much to say about her. Next up, we have to talk about Nora Allen, Barry's mother. I actually really liked her.
She killed it.
I think she was really good. You really felt the emotion of her death. They captured that really well.
And that was definitely a new take, right? Like it was making her Hispanic. But I thought it was cool, and I thought it added a lot of authenticity and kind of culture into that household.
It did.
But yeah, man, the writing with him and his relationship to his parents and just something as simple as moving to Camp Tomatoes with like, I'm balling personally. But no, I thought she killed it.
I did too. I mean,
she was amazing.
Like I said, she really captured that emotional aspect. Like you wanted her to live. You wanted you felt what Barry was feeling. You know, the whole thing with that. They did a really, really good job with that. So I appreciate that. Next up, the last character we'll talk about is Henry Allen. I think they captured him well as too.
He did a good job.
He was in prison, you know, and Barry was wanting to get him out, and the video camera and the whole scene where he didn't look up, that was like heart wrenching.
Yeah,
it's like it was right there, you know. It's so much, and the ends where he changed it, that was really cool.
Yeah, he moved it to the top shelf.
That was really awesome. I appreciated that.
Yeah,
but yeah, Henry was also pretty cool in this movie in what he was in.
I agree.
All right, next up, we have to move on to our next part, which is going to be pretty cool to talk about. And we're going to talk about the cameos of this movie, because this movie had a plethora of them.
Yeah.
It had quite a few of cameos. And some are good, some are bad, but we'll talk about them as we go on. First one we got to talk about is Jeremy Irons' Alfred. I mean, Alfred the Legend was great. He was in it.
I love Jeremy Irons. His Alfred's one of my favorite, probably my second or third favorite behind the Arkham series and then Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
I love both of their renditions.
Great.
But Jeremy Irons was great. He was hilarious.
He was
too.
great. He was
so good.
Yeah, he was like, why didn't you call Superman? And he was like
my first
he was
option.
unavailable. And he was like, that was my first option. He was unavailable. It's like, why didn't you call Diana? It's like, she's also not available. It's like, how many options that was so funny. That was so great. But yeah, he did a great job. Glad to see him back for one last time. Yeah. All right, next up, we got Wonder Woman full on. We got Gal Gadot in it. I was too. I was like, obviously they kind of spoiled her actually being on the Pops for the Flash list, but she was in it, and she was really cool, and her scene was also funny with the lasso of truth, and I liked how they did that with the Batman, you know, like, my ego's too big.
Too big of an ego.
That was hilarious. And then Barry was just like, I know what sex is, but I've never experienced it.
I've never experienced it. Was
so funny.
It's like, dude, Batman, like, do you think she knew I was kidding? He's like, no, the cat's out of the bag. He's like, you got to move past it.
It's so funny.
Runs back in time to erase
that whole conversation. But it was great. She was a welcome. I mean, it made it realistic to the sense of, she would show up, you know.
Yeah.
It's not just centered on a Flash movie, you know. It's the Justice League. It's, you know, other characters could show up at any time.
And it feels realistic, because every time you see a character's movie and then the world gets
nobody's
destroyed
in it
and no one's in it, you're like, all right, surely it's not just Ant-Man trying to stop the world.
I know. Yep.
But no, I liked it.
I liked it too. Also, we got Aquaman, Jason Momoa showing up at the very end.
That was cool.
That was hilarious. End credit scene. I thought that was so funny.
It didn't accomplish anything.
It didn't do anything except
for
for maybe confirm that Aquaman, Jason Momoa, is there to stay. That's my thing, is I think he might be staying because of that. Because James Gunn did say that the Flash movie would change everything to what the DCU would be. So is Jason Momoa there to stay as Aquaman? It's potentially could be.
Ben Affleck.
No, not Ben Affleck though. Unfortunately, no.
I love that, dude. Go make your own Batman universe along with Mary.
Why not? Come on. But Aquaman, he fell in the water. Said this was his home. This was his bed. That was
just lying face down in the pool of water.
He gave him Atlantean treasure to go buy
more beer. I thought that was so funny.
That was so funny.
He's like, just tell the bartender.
Didn't really accomplish anything else. All right, next up, cameo wise, we got Henry Cavill Superman.
That was crazy.
Very briefly. We just got his face, like coming in like in the past scene, but still pretty cool.
Do you think that was just like AI, or do you think that was? I doubt they actually filmed that.
They didn't.
It has to be a previous shot.
It was all AI. It was all like structure, CGI and stuff. All right, next up we got Teddy Sears as Jay Garrick from the CW Flash. That was interesting.
That was dope.
That was interesting. My only quarrel also with these cameos is Grant Gustin and John Wesley Shipp were right there. And they were the only other two Flashes that have ever played the Flash, and they didn't have them make cameos. That kind of makes me mad.
There's said photos of both Grant Gustin and Henry Cavill.
Right.
The director himself said that they were cut just for the sake of time.
That's stupid. Because some of these cameos, I'd rather send Grant Gustin's Flash instead of some of these cameos. But it's so stupid to me. Like Grant Gustin. He's played the Flash for 10 years. They could have just put him in there as a cameo. It would have been easy as that, but oh well. All right, next up, we got some other really cool ones we'll talk about, and that being first off, we got George Reeves Superman, the original man. I used to watch that as a kid. It's awesome to see
that was crazy.
George Reeves, make an appearance as Superman very, very briefly.
That was my father-in-law's favorite part when he saw like that, and then the '78 Superman.
Right.
He was like, I grew up with this stuff.
So cool, right? And then we see Adam West's Batman as well, which is really cool, iconic. It was really cool to see him. And then we got Christopher Christopher Reeve Superman as well, which was really cool to see him back. And I enjoyed how they did that with Helen Slater's Supergirl right next to him as well, even though that movie was awful. But Christopher Reeve's Superman is actually a really great movie. Have you ever seen Christopher Reeve's original Superman?
I've never seen the full movie, but the
first one's really, really good.
Okay.
You need to check that one out. It's a really good movie. But anyway. And then we get the most unexpected cameo
I knew
of all
as soon as I saw the hair.
I did too.
I knew who it was.
I knew as soon as I saw the hair, but I was shocked.
There's no way.
It was Nicolas Cage's Superman. I was like, whoa! How did that? Dude, the guy next to me looks over at me and he goes, dude. And he was like, you know what that means? I was like, yeah. It was legendary.
Lauren was like, is that Nicolas Cage? I'm like, yeah. She's like, when was he Superman?
I was like, shut up, woman.
I'm like, that's Nicolas Cage.
He was Nicolas Cage.
Really,
he was Superman. No, he was supposed to
like,
be the 1998 Tim Burton Superman movie. I mean, that was supposed to happen, but no.
But that never happened.
It never got to come.
It was, I don't know, man. That part was just weird because obviously they didn't even bring in Nick Cage.
No, he didn't even do it.
It was completely animation. Yeah. But it was bad animation. Yeah. Like, you could clearly tell they're trying to render like a human. But yeah, that was some PS3 graphics.
It was for sure. It was. But anyway, we got Nicolas Cage's Superman. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, dude. And it totally fit the Burton kind of feel. Like he's ripping apart a spider. I'm like, all right.
That's definitely Tim Burton.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the most interesting cameo at the very end of the movie. And we have to talk about this a few minutes. George Clooney's Batman showing up.
Dude, that's the worst Batman in my opinion.
He is the worst Batman, and he admits he's the worst Batman, but he shows up. So what does this mean? Is he the brave and the bold Batman? I mean, if James Gunn said that this changes the whole entity of the DCU to what it will be now, is he going to be the Batman of the brave and the bold?
I just don't see why he would try to bring George Clooney back.
I know.
You know?
Like, I love George Clooney, and I think he fits the role of Bruce Wayne very well.
Yeah, but he needs to be middle-aged. Yeah. This is like a Thomas Wayne kind of deal. Like, you need
50s,
you need 50s, late 40s kind of Batman.
Right. So, yeah, that's really
like a Ben Affleck.
I know. But I don't know. Is he going to be? I don't think he will be. But
I don't think
the way that they did it, though, makes it feel like it could be.
Just make the Flash just run back in time and fix the can tomatoes. I don't know, or something again.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
That's just weird, dude. Like, what it implies, like,
right. That the change that it made. I don't know.
They
but
got some explaining to do.
We got George Clooney as Batman in his return. Yeah. That's still pretty cool to see him, but still it didn't. And my theater got a reaction for that, so that was cool.
And was that the only thing that even changed about the new timeline that Barry created?
As far as we know, we don't know yet. I think there will be more repercussions, but we'll just have to wait and see for the future of the DCU. All right, now we're going to get to our pros and cons of this movie. You want to start off?
Yeah, I think I have about 6 or 7 pros.
All right.
And I'm going to start off. I've already harped about it, but I'm doing Ben Affleck as Batman, dude. Like, he really stole the scenes that he was in both as Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like, it's just... He was just gravitating his performance. Like you said, he figured out how to finally play this character. And it just makes me sad that we're not going to see it again.
I know. So sad.
Yeah, but yeah, that's my first pro, man. Dude, killed it.
Yep. All right. My first pro is the plot. I will say the plot. I think the plot was good. The way that they did that and the way they handled the Flashpoint storyline was really, really well done. The plot, I mean... It goes with everything, that you expected from this movie, but at the same time, it delivers in a lot of other aspects. Yes, it was really cool to see the Barry go back in time to try to save his mom. And then, come back and Barry have to deal with Barry 2 and then get superpowers and stuff. Followed the Flashpoint storyline pretty well with a couple of added details and new stuff and the comedy and stuff. But I think they handled all that stuff pretty well for what they had. So I have that as a pro.
Listen, man, I totally agree. As another pro, I have Ezra Miller's acting as both Barrys. I thought it was really dope. There's obviously a clear difference. And it was hilarious just getting to see that because, I don't know, it makes you wonder, like, how would you interact with your past self? And, like, what would those interactions be like? And would your younger self listen to maturity and advice or would you completely ignore it? Right. I thought it was hilarious. And the CGI for them was great, dude. Yeah. Like, they were really there.
they did really well. I agree. All right. And then I also have the same thing. I'm acting as a pro as well. Not even just Ezra Miller, but some of the other actors did a really good job. I think Ben Affleck did an incredible job. I think Michael Keaton did an incredible job. I think Sasha Calle as Supergirl did an incredible job with the acting. I think all acting on all forms was also a really big pro for me.
Yeah.
Also with the pro, I have the comic book feel of this movie. It felt very comic book to me. It felt like I was immersed into a comic book storyline, and I appreciate appreciated that. I mean, I liked all the aspects, the cameos or the Justice League members involved and all this other stuff. It felt like a Flash comic book I was reading, and I liked that.
Yeah.
So that's a pro as well.
Listen, man, I totally agree with you about the acting because I also threw in Michael Keaton and Sasha Callie and then Michael Shannon. I found their performances to be really, really good, and they definitely. I mean, there's like really no bad performances in the movie. If you think about it. One of the pros that I have is just a simple, the familial writing with between Barry and his parents, and like we said, they build up to something so simple as, taking out a can of tomatoes and what that implies, just to be a beautiful, powerful, and emotional moment. I thought the relationship with his parents was just really touching. I thought they really, really hit on that part.
Okay. All right. For my next pro, I have certain aspects of comedy. Like we talked about earlier, the comedy in this movie, this is one of the funniest superhero movies I think I've ever seen. And, they try to make superhero movies funny in a lot of ways, and some of them they don't work out. Oftentimes they don't work out. But this one it did.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
It was hilarious. This movie I was laughing all the time in this movie, and it didn't feel like too much forced, but it was really good. And I have that as a pro.
I agree, because that's my last pro. Is the comedy. My thing would be when it hits, it hits.
Yes.
There is several scenes, several lines. When Barry's like just kind of prancing around in the research center because he thinks he still has powers, but he doesn't.
Right.
Dude, I laughed at that for like probably 2 minutes,
Dude. It was so funny.
Even 5 scenes later.
Yeah.
When it was funny, man, it was hilarious, and it didn't always just feel so forced. And I think, honestly, that's due to Ezra Miller's performance.
Yeah.
And it makes me kind of want to see them in, honestly, in a different role.
Yeah.
Maybe in a comedy or something.
Right.
I think
Right.
might work out. So that's my last pro.
Yeah, my next pro is the second act. I think the second act was the best part of the movie. I think the whole, with trying to get Supergirl, trying to get Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, the interaction between the two Barrys, and all of that stuff happening in there, and there wasn't a lot of different stuff. It was just really cool.
Yeah.
That part of the movie and trying to get his powers back and all those other things was just really, really incredible. And that was my favorite part of the movie, was that. Yeah. And then along with that is, like I talked about this earlier, the emotional scene with Nora at the grocery store where they interacted. That was just a beautiful scene, man. Yeah. Like tears were in your eyes.
I was crying, bro.
You were emotional, and the whole interaction, of having to change it, and then her just going out of her way, not knowing this guy, but really knowing this guy, to just hug him and give him a tissue and just showing the caring nature she was. It was just really incredible scene, and just his emotion translated well, and the acting was incredible there. So that was one of my favorite scenes of the movie. So that's a pro for me.
Yeah.
All right, cons. I think we both had the same first con. Yeah. And that being number one, CGI.
Yeah.
CGI is the worst con of this movie.
Is really bad.
It was bad. It was bad. It's bad when your dad, my dad, I went and saw this movie the second time with my dad. And my dad usually doesn't care about the CGI or anything. He usually just goes with the flow. He's good with it.
Yeah.
But it's bad when
he's a chill guy.
He is. I mean, he just doesn't care. And then my dad, it's pretty bad when your dad goes, it felt like a video game watching that movie. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, when he says, it felt like in video games in those scenes, like it looks kind of stupid. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad when he has to say that. So
yeah, I totally agree. Like, at least in the beginning, you had the baby scene. It was clear that one baby was just a doll, another baby was 100% CGI. But dude, every time he was traveling back in time, man, just like the flashbacks, and the people, it was terrible.
It was so bad. And Andy Muschietti, though, said that this was on purpose, and I don't believe it, but he said it was on purpose. He said that
it's a cop-out.
It is 100% a cop-out, but he said that because when Barry's running so fast, it distorts the images, which I get, but still, I feel like it was kind of a cop-out for us to see because it was just really bad.
Well, if that's true, like every other time when he runs fast, like everyone else looks the same. Yeah. And the landscape looks completely the same.
Right.
Like in the beginning, the CGI, whenever he's racing, right?
That was really
in
good.
Gotham. Dude, that scene was awesome.
That was great. Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite, like speed scenes ever. Like, it's not just he's, but like buildings and moving past him slow. You see, like everything just move by him. I thought it was cool, but yeah, my first con is also the CGI. I saw someone on TikTok, they're like PS2 CGI. Yeah. And that perfectly kind of encapsulates it. I know that they had a smaller budget than the Black Adam, but I feel like this movie was a little rushed because of that. And I do think they could have spent a lot more time on the CGI.
They could have spent a whole nother year working on that.
I know. I know it's expensive, but then again, like, it didn't ruin the movie experience, but it was it was distracting, really.
It was in a lot of ways, especially that baby scene.
that baby scene was. My first kind of big con after that was. The movie was too predictable. The movie was too predictable. It showed like everything in the trailer. Like, Michael, if you look back on our podcast, like especially you produced this all, the whole thing with the Barry, being evil, the Barrys going against each other, all this stuff, like it was just clear to see. It was very clear that, they're going to meet up with Michael Keaton, go with this different universe, and then try to save their mom, and then, this one character try to stop him. I felt like I wasn't really surprised by anything besides the cameos at that point. It shouldn't be like that. Cameos aren't there to be your main focus, your feature. They're supposed to be additional and extra, but it just felt like they're like, boom, surprise, because we already knew the plot.
Yeah.
Not saying it's a bad plot, I'm just saying we already knew it.
Right, we did. I completely agree. My next con is the dialogue. The acting was great, but certain aspects of the dialogue were just not there.
Yeah.
It was just, at certain times saying something, and it was just kind of stupid. I mean, I think a lot of people like this line, but I didn't. The "Let's go Barbie" line.
Let's go Barbie.
It was funny, but I thought it was stupid.
Do you think they did that to kind of?
Oh, they promoted the Barbie movie. 100%.
And it's Warner Bros. Which that movie is going to make a ton, way more.
Oh yeah, but they did that, and I thought that was kind of stupid. And then other lines that they just had was just cheesy, and a lot of people are calling out like the "Let's get nuts" line, but that's from the movie.
Yeah, that's iconic. That's just a callback.
It is just a callback. So you can't really say that. But the other dialogue aspects was kind of cheesy.
Do you think it was like just primarily the Flash's?
I think dialogue? It was probably
I didn't get that from the Batman.
No, I didn't get that from Batman or Supergirl, but I think predominantly the Flash's dialogues were kind of cheesy at times. Not all the time, but several times.
Yeah. Let's see here. Another con for me. I think this movie lacked a great villain, and that's what I want to talk about. Like you said earlier, Michael, like they just don't flesh out Dark Flash very well. He's shown there. He punches, Barry into the other timeline because he's still trying to save Supergirl. He's still trying to save his parents, right? That whole shebang. But they just don't. They don't flesh him out very well, and there's never really like any risk or like any consequences to our Barry. It just doesn't matter that much. And the whole time I was expecting this big bad speed showdown, but there never was. It was like, all right, Zod's there, but he's just kind of a distraction. The real thing is Dark Flash, but his scene is over after like 5 minutes.
Right.
It was just, it left me very unsatisfied with that point of the film.
Yeah, I agree. I have that as a con as well, the villain. I mean, like you said, there wasn't a clear villain necessarily. I mean, the villain was himself, but it just wasn't fleshed out correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been, honestly, I think they should have just kept Barry 2 and kept him what he was doing through the same, but just didn't make him Dark Flash. Just make Dark Flash another entity entirely.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done. I would have still made him to where he was like wanting to, stop the deaths of Batman and Supergirl and try to save that world of his and stuff like that. I would still kept that in, but I would have had the two Barrys, had a conflict them against each other, like a big one, like an actual conflict, and then the Dark Flash come in. They realize they got to come out together to stop the Dark Flash. I think that might have been a touch better.
Yeah, and then have like a whole like speed fight.
Right, exactly, and that would have been cool. And then we never really got that. And maybe I wouldn't have kept it in that world because the CGI was so bad. But maybe go out and do something else. But I don't know. I just feel like it lacked that villain. Honestly, I think it would have been better if they had Reverse Flash be kind of a more of a centric villain, because I don't think we're going to get a Flash 2 with this. So they were planned.
Yeah, it's already bombing. I think unfortunately at the box office.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm thinking like Reverse Flash should have been the main villain. It's already been confirmed that he did kill Nora's mom by the director Andy Muschietti, but I think he should have been the villain. Like he should have been the one that brought in Barry to Flashpoint and then kind of been running the world, like kind of like the Flashpoint Paradox movie.
Yeah.
I think they did that movie better than this one, and I think they could have done it better with the Reverse Flash here. But same thing with you. I have the villains as a con.
Yeah. It's your turn, right?
Oh, okay. My turn?
Yeah.
I have
You're disagreeing with me.
I like the pro of aspects of comedy that was funny, but the cheesiness of the comedy was also a con.
Spit it, come on.
It's both. It's a little bit of both. Like the funny comedy that fit was great,
Hilarious.
and then you had cheesy comedy that was stupid.
Yeah,
like the baby scene, and the mental health line, and the nurse screaming.
They were just like referencing Ezra Miller in real life.
They were.
Like, I could drug you. Like, how hard do I have to punch you?
Exactly.
I'm like,
man.
bro, stop.
I know.
Stop this.
I know. But it is what it is with that. But still, several of it was very cheesy for me for the comedies. That's
listen, man. That's the last con I have too. Like I said earlier, like when it hits, it hits. I would go from like almost crying, laughing, and just looking over at my wife like, did they really just say that?
I know, that was
like
stupid.
every kind of line was an attempt at comedy,
Yes.
and when it would hit, it would hit, and when it wouldn't, it would just be really, really, really cheesy. So I don't know, making Flash have a comedic line every time I just felt was kind of weird. It works for younger Barry, but not as much for our Barry. But yeah, they could have toned it down a little bit, but it still worked for the movie.
Right. I understand what you're saying. All right, next up, my last con is the choppy third act. I think the third act, on the first watch, I enjoyed the third act more. The second watch, I enjoyed the first two acts more, and the third act less.
Okay.
I didn't appreciate the third act as much. I think it was cool. The action was kind of cool, but again, like it felt video game-ish. And then, I mean, that's I don't really care about CGI that much to where it took me away that much. But just the choppiness of, keep running back in time, the deaths and the things that happen and stuff like, like you said earlier, is it cheapens the deaths and all this stuff that happens. And then them going back and all this stuff. That whole scene there and the dark Flash coming in and what should have happened there that didn't happen. It just was choppy and I didn't appreciate it. Now, when he went back in time to fix stuff, that was good. I like that. Yeah. The rest of the movie on from that was really good. But that part of the third act, I did not appreciate. And that's my final call. All right. So now to get down to the rating of this movie. So Nathan, you want to start us off today with your rating of The Flash 1 through 10?
Yeah. So I had this rating in my head as soon as I finished the movie, and it stayed pretty constant with me. And I didn't, dude. I really expected to give this one about, from what I heard, like a 5 or 6, but dude, I'm going at 7.5 with this one. I feel like that's pretty fair. I feel like it's a generally good movie. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. It's definitely better than middle of the pack movies. Like your, I don't know, Multiverse of Madness kind of movies. But I thought this film was good. There's many cons, but this movie really hit. And the best part was it just made you feel. I mean, above all else, it made you connected to these characters. Yeah. So I'm selling with a good old 7.5.
Yeah. As a Flash fan and as a lover of this character, I anticipated really liking this movie. And I also factored in my bias as well, because I figured watching this movie at bias. And after finishing the movie both times, I wanted to love it every time because of how much of a Flash fan I am and how much I loved it. But it just didn't pan out necessarily for me as much. I enjoyed certain aspects of the film. I liked the plot, those aspects, but there was other things that just took me out, like the villain or Ezra Miller as the Flash, not the performance, but as the Flash, and then other aspects that just that took me out of this movie. And I debated, watching it the first time, I was like, I'm going to give this like an 8. I'm hype, not like all the way through, but like the first time. But the second time I watched it, I'm like, I'm going lower. Yeah. And I went very low, and then I rose up just a little bit. So I'm going to give this movie, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. That's fair.
I would have loved to give this movie higher. I would have loved to give this movie a 10 out of my biased self for the love for the Flash. But I'm not doing it. I got to give it a 7. I thought about 6.5, but I was like, you know what? For me, it's the Flash. I can't do that. I'm going to give it a 7 at least. So that's just my thing with the Flash. I think it could have been better for what it was, and I feel like the hype didn't capture it originally of what everybody was saying about it as good as I thought it would be. It wasn't that. So 7 out of 10.
It's definitely a rare day when I rank something a little higher.
Yeah.
But listen, man, I completely understand.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Our podcast, Heroes in the Moment, is available on all major podcast platforms, so check it out. Speaking of checking it out, we got our Across the Spider-Verse breakdown out. We have our News 39 out, so go ahead and check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to stay up to date with all of our news, announcements, and updates, check out the social. We have Heroes in the Moment at Instagram.
And we just want to thank y'all for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.